Hi, my name's Allison. I like video games, writing, and niche movies.
Welcome to the Finding Favorites podcast, where we explore your favorite things without using an algorithm. Here's your host, Leah Jones.
Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and this is the podcast where we learn about people's favorite things and get recommendations without using an algorithm. I am here today with author and MFA student Allison Stalberg. Allison, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, doing good.
I'm so excited. We were introduced by Nicole Zelniker, who came on a few weeks ago. Are you in a writing program with them, or how do you and Nicole know each other?
Yeah, we know each other from our undergraduate. So we met at Guilford College, and then she moved in my area, in my circle, and since we're both writers, we just started writing together and just helping each other out.
Nice. So you're in the Southeast then?
Yes.
Great. And you're right now you're getting your MFA in fiction?
Yep, from Southern New Hampshire University.
Wait, but you live in...
Yes.
Is it a remote program, or is it like a low residency program?
It's a low residency program. So I go there in the winter and in the summer for a week and do some intensive writing. And then for the rest of the year, I work closely with a mentor.
That kind of sounds like a dream program.
It's very nice.
Yeah. Because, I mean, is winter in New Hampshire as kind of dreamy as Hollywood makes me think it is?
Well, it definitely is to me since I'm from North Carolina and we hardly get any snow. Mm-hmm. In the winter there was snow everywhere, and that's always a treat for me.
Yeah. That's so cool. I don't think I knew there were really low residency programs like that for MFAs. You always hear about like Iowa or the programs that are just like super intense 1 or 2 years. But this seems like a really nice option.
Yeah, it helps because it's pretty flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you in this program working towards... Because I've talked to a few people on the other side of their MFA program. So like maybe they've developed a book of short stories or a novella. What's the sort of... do you know yet what your big project of your MFA is?
Yes, and I've been building on it. I have like so many ideas. The main project that I've completed is a novella, and I'm going to supplement that with short stories, I think, and maybe even some sections of a novel.
Yeah. How long is the program going to take?
It's 2 years, and I'm graduating in January.
Fun.
Yeah. So
you got to go up for like four retreats. Would that be over 2 years? 2 summers, 2 winters?
Yeah, I haven't gone this coming summer yet.
Okay.
But I've gone twice because of COVID. We kept it remote for the first get together.
Okay. Wow, how exciting. And what's the topic of the novella?
Yeah. So it's about a fairy, and she falls in love with a Luna moth.
Okay.
And this Luna moth, if you know much about Luna moths, he only is going to be alive for about a week.
Oh no.
And she's an immortal fairy, so it's kind of tragic, but they decide to crash bug parties together to make the most of their time. So they go to like a praying mantis wedding, a termite birthday, a spider funeral, an ant coronation. It's very, very whimsical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, does a praying mantis wedding end in murder?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I like things to be dark and whimsical at the same time.
Amazing.
Like at the spider funeral, the babies that are there also admit they ate their mom.
Okay.
Because that's something that spiders do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that part of Charlotte's death is edited out, isn't it?
I mean, it's not all spiders. It's particular.
Right.
But yeah, nature can be cruel.
Yeah. Wow. And you, when we were, your email, you said, so you also have, you called it a fat high fantasy book called Wander.
Yes.
What is that? So high fantasy, I think, and you're gonna have to correct me.
Mm-hmm.
High fantasy is dragons and swords and magic?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it.
Okay. And if it's fat, that means you had like fat protagonists?
No, it's a fat book.
Oh, it's a fat book. I'm like, it's a fat lady with a dragon?
No, so Wander's about a girl who, she's burned by an elemental. So she's actually, most of her body is covered the whole time because she has some really severe burns. Mm-hmm. And she travels in this kind of fantastical land that's at war. And she is trying to help a friend who's been caught up in that battle. Mm. Yeah. It's dark fantasy.
Okay.
It's pretty different from what I'm writing now. But
yeah. So when you go into writing a big book like that, are you drawing maps? Are you like, how do you keep the world you're inventing clear while you're writing it?
Yeah, so for Wander, I did have a map drawn. I had a friend draw a map for me. Mm-hmm. And then in like my novella right now, it's pretty short, so it's pretty easy to keep track of things in my head.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And did you read a lot of high fantasy? How did you come to that genre first?
Yeah, I've just always been into fairy tales and like Renaissance era stories. Mm-hmm. And I think part of that gets into something I mentioned to you about like fairy tale theater was like a big thing for me as a kid. And I just loved magic, especially. I just was so attracted to swords and magic.
Okay. Yeah, you inspired from so your short horror story, The Candle Wench.
Right.
Inspired from when you worked at the Renaissance Fair.
Yes.
So tell me about working at the Ren Fair. Were you?
Yeah, so
yeah.
I worked for a candle shop at the Renaissance Fair, and it was a very interesting experience. I feel like the Ren Fair kind of attracts two different kinds of people when it comes to people who work there. There's like the really, really hippy-dippy people who are kind of into the cottagecore stuff, and then there's kind of conservative people where they like come from Texas and they're into traditional things.
Okay, so they're there because the Renaissance was still real big on the patriarchy, and if you work at the Renaissance Fair, you can embrace the patriarchy and trad wife stuff.
Yeah, and of course I wasn't into that, but I kind of got thrown into that. Okay. And that's part of what inspired The Candle Wench. Okay. Because I never really wanted to work in retail, but unfortunately, a lot of people need to work in retail to, make ends meet. And that's where I was at the time. And so I thought the Ren Fair would be different because it's, it has all these pretty things. It's part of it is acting, too. I had to have a fake English accent while I worked there.
The whole summer? Or the whole year?
It was just a season.
A week? A season, okay.
Yeah, so it was through a couple months in the fall.
Okay.
So I had to have an accent and I had to dress a certain way.
Did they give you costumes?
Yeah, I had costumes. And yeah, it was very fascinating. So The Candle Wench it's not like autobiographical, it's fictional, but it's inspired by it because the girl, the protagonist, the Candle Wench, she doesn't have a name, she's just called that in the story. She's slowly melting as she works at this candle shop. It's kind of a horror story. Wow.
When you go to get a job at the Renaissance Fair, do you have to... So when I was growing up, and I think much older than you, I'm 46. If I wanted to get a job at the mall, I walked from store to store applying on paper applications. So at the Ren Fair, do you apply with a central office and they're like, okay, and we are assigning you to the candle shop, or did you have to go and apply with different vendors?
They assigned me to the candle shop. Well,
Okay.
What happened is I would send my resume and information to, I think, the Ren Fair website, and then they would pass me along to the different shops that want local people to help out.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. And what about, you mentioned fairy tale theater, which there's a huge Renaissance fair very close to Chicago, and it's a shame that I've been here for 20 years and I've never been. So I think I went to the Renaissance fair once when I was little, in Indiana, but tell me about fairy tale theater.
Okay, so fairy tale theater is a TV series.
Oh.
Yes. It's not a Ren Fair. But it does sound kind of like it could be. But,
right?
But it's not. It's, do you know Shelley Duvall?
Yes.
Yeah, from The Shining. So she kind of spearheaded this TV series that's telling just fairy tale stories. And there's very famous actors who were in this. Carrie Fisher played Thumbelina in one episode.
Whoa.
I would have to look it up. There were very famous actors in it, and yet no one knows about it. So I felt like my childhood was like a strange dream.
So there's the first season 1, episode 1 is Terry Garr and Robin Williams, and Robin Williams is a frog.
Yeah, that was The Princess and the Frog.
That feels kind of familiar, but because this is right in this is 1982. Like, I should have absolutely watched all of this. I would have been 5 years old.
Yeah, for some reason, even though I was born in the 90s, I watched a lot of stuff from the 80s.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, and all the effects were very practical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very different than fairy tales on stage at the Ren Fair.
Yes.
Did you have these were these on tape and you watched them on a tape, or did you,
Yeah, I think what happened is my parents recorded them on VHSs, and they would just see these episodes and then tape them for me, and then I just watched them over and over. Yeah.
Is there a favorite one for you of this series?
That's a good question. For some reason, the Hansel and Gretel, I think. It was, they're all kind of, it's hard to pick. I really liked Hansel and Gretel and the Snow Queen. And the Snow Queen one was kind of interesting because I knew that fairy tale so well. And then when I heard Disney was doing Frozen, I was like, oh, it's the Snow Queen. You guys are doing the Snow Queen. But then they went a totally original route. So it wasn't the Snow Queen I knew. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was 6 seasons, technically. But some seasons only had 2 episodes. Like season 1 only had 2 episodes.
Yeah. And some of the episodes were really humorous. Like, I was rewatching them with my husband. I had to share them. And there was a grandfather clock who was just a really old man. And if you poked him, he'd tell you what time it is. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Little Red Riding Hood has Mary Steenburgen, who's married to Tom Hanks. Is she married to Tom Hanks? I think so.
I don't know.
Malcolm McDowell, who was in Mozart in the Jungle. He was he was like the old grumpy conductor in Mozart in the Jungle. Yeah, these are full of people who, like, if they weren't superstars at the time, they were on their way.
Yeah.
Carol Kane, Christopher Reeve, Bernadette Peters, John Lithgow, Carole King. This is a stacked cast.
Yeah, I'm amazed not more people don't know about it.
There's a Pinocchio episode with Paul Rubens. So Pee Wee Herman is Pinocchio. Carl Reiner as Geppetto. Jim Belushi is in it. This is wild.
Yeah, you should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big part of my childhood. And Shelley Duvall plays numerous parts in it. I remember she's Rapunzel, for one. And it's not always like fluffy fairy tale. It gets a little real sometimes. Like with Rapunzel, there's like a part where the prince goes blind and you like see, well, it looks really fake, but like blood starts pouring out of his eyes when he goes blind.
Right, because he falls into the thicket of thorns under her tower, right?
Yeah, I think something like that. I know he falls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It helps that I just saw Into the Woods 2 weeks ago.
Oh, good.
So I just got a good refresher on how dark the Grimm fairy tales were.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I wonder if it's some of it looks like it's on YouTube. So I am gonna
They're all on YouTube, I think.
They're all on YouTube?
Yes.
Nice. So so that's fairy tale theater. You also mentioned the Polar Bear King, so we might as well talk about it.
Yes.
What is the Polar Bear King?
It kind of reminded me a lot of fairy tale theater as a kid. This is another strange thing my parents had on hand that I watched constantly. And I think it's because on my father's side, his grandparents immigrated from Norway. So he wanted something Norwegian for me. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, look at this fairy tale, The Polar Bear King. And it's this, let me see when it was made, The Polar Bear King, because it is also something that's feels old with practical effects, but it's a fairy tale that's from Norway about a prince who turns into a polar bear. He gets cursed by a witch, I think. And
oh no.
But it was kind of cool because the princess saves him. It's not him saving the princess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a movie that I really loved as a kid.
Yeah, 1991.
They have kind of an interesting thing where the princess is from a place where it's always winter, and the prince is from a place that's always spring.
Oh. But so the prince who is from a place that's always spring becomes the polar bear.
Yeah, and that's why he ends up in her lands.
Oh,
and meets
okay.
her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And this was, again, just the tape your parents had around, or did your dad sit you down and was like, it's time for you to know about your people?
I don't think it was that upfront. I think they just kind of put it on. Mm-hmm. But of course, my memory from then is not as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When's the last time that you rewatched it? Is this one that you've introduced your husband to?
Yeah, I'll show my husband like everything.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Nice. It seems to me like maybe it's got kind of in this world, the thing that I watched the most on repeat was The Last Unicorn.
That's one of my favorite movies. I'm getting like a big tattoo of The Last Unicorn in like October.
That's exciting. What scene or what sort of montage are you going for?
I'm going for like Art Nouveau. So it's going to have the unicorn, and it's going to have like those arches that Art Nouveau art typically has. And I would put like trees in the forest around her. And somewhere include the unicorns in the sea wave, because I always loved that animated scene where you see the unicorns come and they're like mixed in with the sea foam.
Yeah. Yeah. It was such a good movie and so scary.
Yeah. Have you read the book?
No. Is the book scarier?
The book, I think it's a good adaptation of the book. It did miss a couple things, but they're both solid.
Nice. Have you found your tattoo artist yet?
Yes.
Awesome.
Because she already did a unicorn tattoo, and I realized she's just a couple hours away. So I was like, that's a good fit.
Yeah. Is this your first big tattoo?
No, I have like 6 tattoos.
Nice.
I have like a nautilus on my arm. Like, it's
Aw, I
colored.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like a seal, a Pokemon, a rabbit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a quarter sleeve on this arm of kind of like so they're the bike posters by Alberto Mucha. So also Art Nouveau or Art Deco. I'm not sure where he lands in it.
Mm-hmm.
But his bike posters, they're women with like long flowing hair, but they're really active with their bikes. And I really like that about them. But I also felt like there were 5 or 6 posters. They're really kind of well known if you're into bicycles, and that people already had his posters as tattoos. So I didn't want to just get like a repeat.
Yeah.
So I worked with a local artist, Serena Landers, to come up with like a very Chicago bike, like very feminine, but like Chicago with lilies of the valley and the Chicago skyline, and this woman who's like in a long flowing dress, but she's carrying her bicycle on her shoulder, to kind of go with the spirit of his posters without being an exact copy.
That's cool. Yeah, I love tattoos.
Yeah. I keep planning the next one. But it's so hard to get. It's so interesting to me how tattoo artists, at least in Chicago, are shifting where it's now like, they're artists. And so they're not doing on-demand designs so much anymore. It's like you follow them and you try to get one of their designs that fits what you're going. Like, you know, there's a lot of women doing black and white botanical stuff in Chicago right now, based on antique botanical prints. And I want that, but I want it specifically of fruits and vegetables and plants that are important in Judaism. But like, none of them let you request the plant. You just have to go with like, here's the 50 things they're offering this year. Maybe you can get in on one. And so I just don't know if I want to go and find someone who's like less good at it so I can get the theme I want, or do I don't know. It's a very different than it was 12 years ago when I got or 10 years ago when I got my quarter sleeve.
Yeah, I guess I've been lucky with the artists I found, at least here in North Carolina. Like, they've been pretty open to things that I have thought up.
Yeah. Yeah, in the past I have, because I've got like 3 on my back and 1 on my ankle. And then those were all, some of them were just like, I just walked in, you know, and they drew them up and did them. So yeah, it's not all impossible.
Yeah, I am put on very long waiting lists for certain artists, though.
Yeah. This has been a good kickoff. I feel like we've already talked about some of your favorite things.
Yes.
But is there another favorite thing that you wanted to go into, dive deeper on?
Well, I'm pretty big into video games.
Yeah?
Yeah. To the point where I don't know which one I would want to focus on. But
okay.
I guess I'm a pretty big Dragon Age fan.
All right.
Dragon Age and Mass Effect. But I am also into, since we were talking about these kind of niche TV shows, there's also niche video games that I really like the RPG Maker games.
Okay.
Those are like, so I do love indie games, but these are like super indie games. Like, they're free online, and only a couple, like only people who like know about them can find them. These types of games.
So an RPG Maker horror. Would be like a role-playing game maker?
Yeah.
Okay.
RPG Maker horror is like, it's kind of like, it has a cult following in terms of gamers who play these games. They're usually made by Japanese creators. Like, one of my favorites is Eve, which is about a girl who gets teleported to a horrific world that is made by a disturbed painter.
Oh.
Yeah, and the graphics are really like, they're 8-bit. They're like the early Pokemon games in terms of graphics. But they're really spooky. I'm really inspired by them because I feel like, there's all these AA games and people pour so much money into them and so much stuff. And then you see these little games that are made just with love. And
what does it mean if something is an AA game?
So they're made by the big companies.
Okay.
They're made by like
Nintendo, Sony.
Yeah, with lots of money backing them.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you get into... So if these games are only available to the people who know how to look, how did you become someone who knew how to look?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. What was my first one? I guess back when I was a kid, there were like lots of little free games you could find online. And I think there was a time in college when I was an undergraduate, I was missing that and I was feeling nostalgic for it. And I was on Tumblr and I could start seeing people post images from different games and it made me curious. And so I delved deeper. And then I found the website with the translations for these games. And you need to like be careful because you can like download a fake that's a virus. But there are people who have them and you can download them for free.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you were, because when you were growing up, it would have, because there were Flash games that people could build they were pretty lightweight. They were just in the browser. Like those are the types of games you were talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
But these ones are a little more complex and they're horror.
Okay.
They're spooky.
Is the sound spooky too, or just the visuals?
The sound can be scary. Like there's one of my favorites is called Dreaming Mary. And that's a game where you play in this like, you're like a little girl in a fantastical dream world. Everything is pink, the animals are real cute and things are fluffy. But as you explore, it starts getting kind of weird, kind of creepy, stuff starts happening and the music just stops. Like, and you realize how much you depended on that music to feel like things are going to be okay, and then suddenly it's quiet. Stuff like that.
Yeah. Are these like... So I just play like puzzle match 3 games on my phone. I'm not a gamer.
Yes.
But I listen to the podcast Get Played, which is a podcast about gaming because I like the people who do it so much. So are these like puzzle games? Are they open world? Are you on a quest?
Yeah. I wouldn't say they're open world because the people who make them have pretty limited resources. So you're usually confined into a mansion or a house, and they're pretty linear. So typically it depends on the plot. You can be trapped and you're trying to find a way to escape. Or like in the witch's house, you need to find the witch in order to escape her house. And in Ebe, you're trying to escape this painter's world. A lot of them have to do with finding something or uncovering a mystery. There's one called, I think, Mermaid Swamp. And Mermaid Swamp, your car breaks down. It has all those tropes and then like a creepy old man lets you and your friends in. One of you gets mysteriously ill, and then the old man disappears. You're trying to figure out what's going on. Like that's the kind of plot that these games follow.
Yeah. And are these games that are like a 2-hour game, a 6-hour game, like how many hours do you think you typically put in? Or I guess maybe not typically, but like how many hours might one of these take you to complete?
They're short. They're like appetizers of the gaming world. They're like these cute little things. But you can get stuck. Some of them have hard puzzles, and some of them have made me feel like an idiot. Like there was one puzzle in Dreaming Mary where you use a key to unlock the door, And then there's another door, and I'm like, where's the key? And they're like, it's the same key. You need to retrieve it from the other door you unlocked. And I was like, okay, well, yeah.
Are there Reddit subreddits where you find out about new ones, or where's the online community or is there an online community associated with these games in English for you?
Yeah, I'm sure there's definitely a community on Reddit. I don't really frequent Reddit. But I do frequent Tumblr, and there's a fan base there. The people who really made these games suddenly spike in terms of recognition and popularity are streamers. People like Mark Plyer, who would film himself playing the game, would get a popularity boost. And I think PewDiePie might have played some of the games. I think he played Ebe. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Tumblr is, it feels like it is coming back to life. I've been on Tumblr a very, very long time.
Me too.
But now it's owned by WordPress, I think, right?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. So they were independent, then they were bought by Yahoo. Yahoo fucked it all up. And then I think now it's WordPress, and it feels like they're kind of getting back on track and and maybe people are going there again. But maybe they didn't leave. Maybe I'm the only one who left, you know?
Yeah. I've been pretty consistent on there.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't feel like there's another website like it in terms of the culture.
Yeah. I think it's, I always, when I used to work in marketing and agencies, and that's when I was really active on Tumblr, and people would come up with ideas in brainstorms, or they would be starting to come up with ideas for brands. And I'm just like, ooh, I can already tell how this is going to go poorly on Tumblr. So part of my goal, like my risk mitigation, was like, how can we Tumblr proof this idea? And not like, how can we make it bland, but how can we make sure that we are being inclusive with our idea, that we're not like just going in and doing like a white cisgender program. And for me, it was like, Tumblr was one of the tools I think that helped teach me a lot as a white woman, like of how to listen in the world, like how to shut up and listen, which is obviously why I started a podcast. But the Tumblr discourse, I learned a lot. And I think I stopped some bad ideas from going out into the world, because I was like, you don't want to see what they're going to do to you on Tumblr.
Yeah. Tumblr is also where I learned that I'm asexual.
Okay.
Yeah, because they get have so much tools on terms of sexuality and diversity.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. That it was that through your dashboard you were able to get the language and identify in yourself, like, oh, okay, that actually, finally I see myself in this description.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I finally had the language.
Yeah. I think people want to when the powers that be, or people who don't understand how powerful Tumblr and TikTok can be, I think they don't understand what it's like not to see themselves in maybe mainstream media, or see themselves in the stories presented that make it to big on TV, and how much introspection is unlocked on those tools and in those communities. So you find out about these games on Tumblr. That was a little digression.
Yes.
Are you a Twitch streamer? Do you ever go and watch people play games on Twitch? Is that something interesting to you?
I used to watch people play horror games, but I'm way more of a I like playing them myself.
Mm-hmm.
If I get particularly obsessed with a game, I might like to watch how another person reacts when they play it.
Yeah. But do you wait until you've finished it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. And what are you playing these days?
Well, I have just beaten a game called Chicory, and
Okay.
that was a really cute game. And it was more meaningful and introspective than I expected.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game where the world is black and white, and you can paint it. You are a character who gets the paintbrush, and this
Mm-hmm.
paintbrush is like the one paintbrush. So there's like status and all this stuff involved with it, and you get it even though you worked as just a janitor. And it deals with kind of the pressures of that are in the art world, like how people can judge you, how people can be very passionate, but that eventually leads to like needing to be perfect so much that they start erasing everything they make and can't decide what to make anymore. It was a very introspective game, and I really appreciated it from a writing perspective, because a lot of art is about like waiting for someone to choose you or to validate you, and that can be damaging. And so that game tackled that in a very splendid way.
Wow.
Yeah.
So in a game like that, this is just my ignorance. Is there a voiceover? Is it something you're reading? Like, how are you learning like the rules of the universe and this sort of messaging?
Yeah, it's how the conversations the characters have with each other.
Okay.
You play a character, and this character goes around these different towns talking to people, and there's this whole world involved with this. So they talk about their passions, they talk about what art means to them, and through those conversations you get these meanings.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Wow, that sounds really neat. So that was called Chicory.
Yes.
And how long was that game?
Maybe 20 something.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And so one of the things I know from this one gaming podcast I listened to is that there's a new Zelda out. Are you a Zelda person at all?
Yes, but not like intensely. So my husband, it's his favorite series.
Okay.
And so I'm letting him get a big head start. Because he kind of is able to play a game and then stop and then play a different game and then go back to that game and do all this. I have this like crazy drive in my brain that gets set off sometimes, and I will just lightning bolt through a game.
Okay.
And I don't want to beat it before him.
Got it.
So
he got first dibs.
Yes. And I'm expecting I'll get first dibs when the new Dragon Age comes out, because that's my favorite series. Yeah.
Is that coming out this year, or is that?
Well, we've been waiting too many years. It's hopefully going to come out next year. But the last game was in like 2013, so I've been waiting for a pretty long time.
Oh my gosh. So tell me a little bit about that game. What happens in Dragon Age?
Yeah, so Dragon Age is a fantasy RPG. It's heavily based on Dungeons and Dragons. Mm-hmm. So a lot of it is creating a character and making choices for that character in this like kind of fantasy adventure.
Yeah.
And it's made by BioWare, and I love most of their work. And the romances are one of the juiciest parts of these games. You get to pick a romance, and there's also
your character to have, or like to happen in the world
for your character to have.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone has their favorites.
Nice.
And it has a great diversity. It's been getting better with each game in terms of queer identities, like lesbian, bi, gay. They had their transgender character in Dragon Age Inquisition. So that's been cool.
And then is it a multiplayer game?
No.
Or is it... Okay, it's you.
It's single player.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and they have books. It's not just a game. If you're really into it, there's books and there's comics and there's like a movie and a TV show. It's one of those like things that's been expanding.
Right.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Are you a game purist, or do you enjoy do you get into the other media?
I get into the other media, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who's your top ship?
Oh dear.
Like or who are some of your favorite romantic relationships?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I want to spoil things for people, but I do love Alistair, Fenris, and Solus. In that order of the games. There are like 3 main games, and those are the 3. 2 of them are elves. One of them's a human dork man. Nice. It's one of those games where the characters like feel like friends. Like they're so well written and fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and how old were you when you started playing Dragon Age? Like, how long have you lived with these characters?
Since 15 years old, maybe.
Okay.
15, 14.
Yeah. I love that. Is it like a PlayStation, or what's this PC, or?
It can be on PC and PlayStation and maybe Xbox. I play PlayStation mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your character, if you want to share?
I have...
Who do you play as?
Well, there's 3 games, so it's 3 different characters.
Okay.
I played a human warden in the first game, and then in the second game I played a mage, and in the third I played a Dalish elf. All of them were women. I always try to play as female if I get the choice.
Yeah. And do you get to... How much about the character... Is it like there's 12 characters, pick one, or you get to like really kind of like on a roll on the sheets where you build out a character in D&D and you're like rolling for different things?
So
is it sort of like that, or? You
can choose their class, and you can choose how they look. So you can be like a warrior or a rogue or a mage, and then there are class specializations, so from there you get to make more choices, so you do get to build pretty much most of the character.
Okay. But they're not making it so you're like, I'm both Iron Man and Superman and
no,
Jigglypuff, like I'm all of these things together, the strongest character could be. So they're not letting you start from like Superman status.
Video games don't let you do that, as far as I know. They set limitations.
Yeah. Well, because otherwise, I guess you have to like, they have to allow you to gain power and gain skills throughout the game too. Yeah. So I'm curious, what do you look for in new games or new to you games?
Yeah. Character customization has become really important to me. Like, if I get a game, I'm like, can I make my character look the way I want them to look, or can I name them? Can I decide what gender they are? I found that that's really been important to me. Romances are always fun. They're just fun. And games with choices and games with humor are really good. Like, I just played a game called Disco Elysium, and the humor in that game was so great. Like, this guy, he's like a really bad cop. Like, he's just, he's kind of a massive idiot, and he has conversations in his head with different parts of his brain yelling at each other all the time. And it was very creative and funny.
I've heard about Disco Elysium on the one gaming podcast I listened to.
Yeah, it's good.
It was one of the big games in 2022, wasn't it?
Yeah, I
Or
don't know. I come late to some games, so I don't know when it came out.
yeah. And how do you, well, and Tumblr is then where you get your news on what you might want to go find and play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and word of mouth. I have a lot of
Yeah.
friends who are into the same stuff.
Yeah. So hopeful that Dragon Age is coming back.
Yes.
That they get they finish their QA and they get it released.
Mm-hmm.
Are there other games on the horizon that you're excited about?
Well, there's a game that it was like my first game on the GameCube, and it's getting a remake this year. It used to be called Harvest Moon, but now it's called Story of Seasons.
Okay.
And that is being remade and re-released, so that's going to be very nostalgic to play.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's the vibe of that game?
Farming. You just
Okay.
farm.
Nice.
You have cows, you have a dog, and you give the villagers presents every day.
Nice.
Yeah, it's very wholesome.
Yeah. It's so wild to me how diverse gaming is, of like what a game can be.
Definitely. There's so much out there.
Like the worlds that they're not all first person shooter dystopian games, right? That there's just so much.
Yeah, there's so much beautiful stuff out there. Like, if someone tells me they don't like video games, I'm like, you must have not played many video games, like, because that's like saying I don't like books. There's just every kind out there.
Yeah. Yeah, the only gaming system I ever had was Atari, like Atari growing up.
Yes.
But we would still like plug it in and play into college.
Yeah.
The same system. And so partly when I've tried to play on like modern gaming systems, I way overcompensate physically because like I grew up on like a joystick that you literally had to like push your weight into.
Yeah.
And so partly I feel like when I play on modern systems, I'm like just like jamming the keyboard too hard. But yeah, like I love like little puzzle games and casual games on my phone. Things that I can that just are endless. They're just endless.
Yeah, I also play some games on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like right now I have on my phone and my iPad because I have Android, so they're like totally different systems. I have Merge Mansion on both devices. I have like a 3D match game on both devices because I just like I love the animation of this pile of things and you're matching them, but I really like the physics of how they've animated the objects.
Yeah.
And I like watching how the pile moves. So I was like, oh, I keep running out of lives. I put it on another device. I get more lives.
Yeah.
Do you ever imagine any of the stories you've written and the worlds you've written crossing over into games? Is that anything you would ever want to try and do?
That's something I myself wouldn't be able to accomplish. I would need a fan base and so much to get it to there. That would be like one of those things where I daydream about it, but I know it's not going to come true type thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I definitely, and I know like some writers get into gaming, like, but they also need to know code.
Right.
Yeah. And my brain is so impractical. It's just constantly in the clouds. I don't know anything about coding, or the sciences or anything. I'm an artist through and through.
Yeah. So let's talk about where can people who are now curious. So Wander was published in 2017. Is it still in print? Can people
Yes.
still
Yeah, people
track it down?
Can get it digitally or physically. Yeah.
Great. And then The Candle Wench, it was recently published. Is that in a magazine or?
Yes, and it's free online.
Great.
Yeah, it's on Altered Reality Magazine's spring 2023 issue. It's on like page, I think, 43. It's just a little short story, and I think it's one of my favorite things I have out right now.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where else can people find your writings?
Yeah. Well, another story I have coming out is called Agnes Coat. It is Selkie folklore meets the yellow wallpaper, and it is coming out in American Mensa's Calliope magazine.
Ooh.
In July.
Okay.
Though it might be late. I've heard it could be pushed back, but right now I'm anticipating for July. Yeah.
That the whole issue could be pushed back, or your piece might get pushed to
the whole
a different issue. Okay.
Yeah.
What is Selkie?
Yeah, so Selkie are some really fun creatures. They are from Irish mythology.
Okay.
I believe. I really hope I'm not wrong on this. They are seals who are human women in seal-like skin.
Okay.
So they're seals, but then they'll come on shore and take off their coats and they're women. And the legends around them involves typically men stealing the coats and hiding them so that the woman will marry them. And they'll have a family together, and typically what happens is the woman finds her coat and goes back into the ocean as a seal and never comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's kind of like the Sirens or even Mermaid, like the movie Mermaid. Mermaid? Is that what it was? It was like a Tom Hanks Splash.
Yeah, it's a little like that. But they're very, I always thought they were very melancholy stories.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike mermaids, I feel like mermaids are very, colorful and
about
songs and stuff like that. But with Selkies, it's I don't know, there's something that is kind of arctic about it.
Mm-hmm. Seals are a very different vibe.
They're my favorite animal.
Lady. Yeah. Huh. And then The Yellow Wallpaper by Virginia Woolf. Woolf? No. Yeah.
I think. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it involves, a woman who is kind of disassociating and is feels like she's kind of trapped in her own head. Because with Agnes Coat, my main protagonist, Agni, she's having memory issues. I don't mention the children's names till the very end of the story, because she's just so, in her own head. And she's taking medicine for it. A thing that I do in my short stories is I sometimes leave the ending to be a little, it's up to the reader to figure out what's really going on. And I feel like both different versions, people have told me when they read these stories are correct. The Candle Wench sprung a bunch of theories from my peer group.
Yeah.
And Agnes Coat does that a bit too.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
And where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, so I had a Twitter that was hacked, so now I have a new Twitter. It's Stalberg Writes.
Okay.
And on Tumblr, I'm Soranime. It's kind of a mouthful.
Sore like SORE or SOAR?
Oh, SORANIME. Though I mostly just
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah.
I mostly just reblog stuff. I don't put my stuff there. If you want to see like my stuff, I recommend Twitter and TikTok, both for which Stalberg writes.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll link to all of that in the show notes.
Yeah.
Was there anything else about games that I didn't ask, but that you would be sad you didn't say?
Nothing off the top of my head right now.
Okay. Great. Well, Allison, it has been so good to get to know you. I know that I'm going to be watching the Fairy Tale Theater on YouTube tonight.
Yay.
So I'm glad I have a plan. I feel pretty sure that I'm going to start watching and it's going to unlock a lot of memories. So I'm excited.
It's very fun.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Finding Favorites with Leah Jones. Please make sure to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Now, go out and enjoy your favorite things.